We are live. Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern, and we're previewing UFC 278 Usman versus Edwards, round two, the rematch. It fights taking place today in just about an hour at the Vivint Arena, if that's how you say it correctly, at Salt Lake City, Utah. Uh, Early prelims, like I said, starting at 3:30 Pacific. Main card starting at 7. And Fern, I believe you had something to kick us off with.
Yeah, I just wanted let everyone know Zeke Flores, our sponsored fighter, got his next fight. He'll be fighting August 27th in Rosarito. So feel free to follow, like, share, support him. He's doing big things. We're excited. Also, BAM Fight Club is going to be heading to the Nate Diaz versus the Kamzat Kimaev fight September 10th. So hopefully we get to do some live streaming stuff, get to do some stuff right in the event. We'll probably be there, I assume, probably like 3 to 10. So excited. We're going to be doing more live event coverage, and that'll be something we've been looking forward to and working towards. And again, follow us on BAM Fight Club, follow Zeke Flores on Zeke underscore 0606, and stay in touch with us. We're reaching more and more people, and we're excited to actually be going to live events now. And Nate Diaz one will be a crazy one. Might possibly be the last fight of his contract, against an up and coming. And from what I've heard, whoever wins is possibly gonna fight for the title. So super excited about that. Yeah, man. And as far as that goes, that's it for that. But from now on, we'll be focused on tonight's fight card.
All right, and first up on the main card, we have Tyson Pedro versus Harry Hunsucker. Pedro coming in at a negative 800 favorite. So Hunsucker, huge underdog on this one. This is pretty crazy. Usually the first fight of the main card, they try to get a matchup that's going to be, really competitive. Obviously, they're always wanting to finish, but they're going to want something super exciting. So this is, to me, an interesting matchup. Harry Hunsucker, he has an interesting record. If you look at it, every single one of his fights has ended in the first round. He hasn't won every fight in the first round. He's lost 5 fights in his career. He lost them all in the first round. Every time he's won in the first round. So absolutely crazy record. This guy's had one fight on Dana White's Contender Series where he lost, which was followed up by a win at the Hard Rock MMA 119, so outside the UFC. Then he got signed with the UFC and has had 2 losses in the UFC since he signed. Again, first round losses. I feel like this guy has not had enough ring time for anybody to know how his style works, other than based on his record, that he's probably going to swing for the moon, which is going to leave a lot of openings. So he's either going to take the guy out quickly or he's going to get taken out quickly, is kind of what I take away from just by looking at his record. Because, like I said, you look at his fight time, 3 fights, including Dana White Contender Series and his 2 UFC fights, he hasn't even racked up 5 minutes of fight time. So, crazy record with Hunsucker. With Pedro, he's coming off a win. He's had some mixed results in the UFC, about 50-50 on wins and losses since he's been in the UFC. He had a great amateur record before that. But, I don't know what to say on this one. The odds are negative 800. I don't see any reason to disagree with those. I feel like if Hunsucker, does what he's done every single fight in his career, it's going to end in the first round, maybe by knockout. Maybe that's why they put him up first. It's like, because they know it's not getting out of the first round. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one, Fern? It's really weird.
Looking at their records, Hunsucker has they're all like first round. It's ridiculous. I'm looking at, oh my goodness, every fight that he's had, every professional fight has ended in round 1. So, and that
Yeah.
includes 5 losses and a couple wins. And he's got losses to Tai Tuivasa, who is just a heavy hitter in 49 seconds. Jared Vanderaa. At Tyson Pedro, he's got some losses to OSP, Mauricio Shogun Hua, Ilir Katifi, Paul Craig, and both these guys have fought some definitely experienced fighters, and I can see why they're putting this one up first. They don't expect this to go long at all. It's gonna be like, let's start the night off with somebody getting knocked out, and then just like everyone rowdy for the rest of the night. I think that that's definitely gonna set the tone, because I expect a lot of these fights to end by finishes. Except for maybe the main event. I could see the main event being more methodical, more of a skilled approach, but every other fight I definitely think is, for me, a very exciting fight. A lot of performance of the night bonuses hopefully handed out tonight. I've noticed that the last couple of fight cards, there's been some crazy fights, and I just feel like the energy's been ramping up all summer. And that's after watching fights for so many years. I think we can definitely read the energy, and the energy is going high and intense going into this fight card.
Absolutely. So as far as your pick, do you see any upsets here, or pretty much going the way the odds makers have it with Pedro?
I'm gonna go, dude. It's like the battle of the tattoos. Both these guys are just so tatted up, and Tyson Pedro looks to be a little bit more lean, a little, he's got the height advantage. I think right now Australia has a lot of great fighters coming in. I want to just piggyback off the energy that they're having, except for Kai Kara France losing recently. Volkanovski, Izzy. They're just producing some great fighters who are stepping up and finishing in great fashion. And I'm going to go based off of that, just the energy that they have going right now.
So who's your pick?
Pedro.
Pedro. Okay. Okay. That's what I thought. And yeah, so next up on the card, we've got Wu Yanan versus Lucy Dudalova. I know that drives some people crazy saying versus. I'll try to remember to get that one right. So this one, another interesting record on with Dudalova. She's somebody who had a UFC contract. I think that ended in the beginning of 2020. She had six fights or 7 fights in the UFC. And then she went to Octagon MMA for the past couple of years, and now she's back with the UFC again. She's fighting out of the Czech Republic. So I don't recall any other women fighters in the UFC from the Czech. So that's interesting. And she's going up against Yanan, which is female fighter from China. And she's coming off of a 3-fight losing streak in the UFC. She's had 5 fights so far. She has had 1 win by submission, but the rest were lost by decisions. And so, I mean, on the positive side for her, she's racked up a lot of experience at this point. Her last fight was just in April of this year, so not too long ago. Has been fairly active. Actually, no, I take that back, because her last fight before that was in 2021, then 2019. So actually, she's racked up the experience, but not maybe as quickly as you'd like to see for an up-and-coming fighter. And as far as Dudalova, she's definitely been more active, but she's coming back into the UFC. So she, it's a weird spot. I don't know what the mental game is when you've already fought in the UFC 7 times, then you're out of the UFC, now you're coming back. So it's kind of like your debut again, but not quite exactly. She's got a lot of experience. Both these fighters have a lot of experience, actually. And as far as the the odds go, they're very, very close odds. It's basically a coin flip. And what do we have? Yeah, so it's not even a grappler versus striker match. I don't even know how these styles are going to go together. What are your thoughts on what's the style makeup here? I'm looking at the stats, which are all changed up on UFC, by the way.
So Wu Yanan trains with Tiger Muay Thai, which Shevchenko's sister trains there. Rafael Fiziev, who just had an amazing performance. I think that she has the stronger camp, the more consistent camp, full of contenders, of people who are going to be fighting for championships here shortly, if not within the end of the year. I think just that experience alone, who she's training with, who she's seeing day to day, I always tend to look at the fight camps because that plays such a big factor in a lot of things recently. You know, it's if you're training with people bigger than you who are higher ranked, who know how to navigate, you know, the UFC's, you know, matchmaking and stuff like that. I'm gonna go with that. You know, Lucy Pudilova has, you know, just about the same amount of fights, but realistically not to the level that Wu is training with. So I think that for me it'd be I would pick Wu because Tiger Muay Thai, like Rafael Fazier's last fight was amazing. Like he just I don't know what they're doing at that camp, but he just looked unstoppable. And you know, I expect them to just be holding every fighter to that same standard and going from there.
And do you see this being more of a stand-up match? I'm looking at their, you know, when we look at their stats, they're almost even on like everything and striking and grappling. It seems like maybe there's a little bit more of an output on the striking with both of them.
Yeah, I expect Wu to keep it standing. I hope that they both keep it standing because I want to say the women's fights lately have just been super impressive, and for them to be on the main fight on the, you know, the main event fight card for a title fight, you know, who for somebody who many consider might be the greatest of all time in Kamaru Usman, that says a lot for them willing to put them on this card, you know, second fight, not even the opening fight, you know, and I think that to me shows that they have faith that this is going to go and definitely put on a great show.
And Lucy, I just realized her nickname is the Bullet. I wonder what Shevchenko will have to say about that. I guess different weight class, maybe Shevchenko's not going to talk too much crap about it, but
yeah,
that is interesting. So what do you think about the mental game though of being in the UFC? You know, leaving the UFC on a 4-fight losing streak. You know, a few years later you come back, you're signed back to the UFC. Guess you racked up a bunch of wins in another organization.
You know, I think realistically, no organization is comparable to the UFC, and while you might go and get wins in those organizations, you know, if you're not training with people who are to that higher level, you know, she's associated with Octagon Fighting Academy, and I'm trying to find any fighters on that team who are recognizable, and I don't see anyone. You know, whereas right off the bat, Wu's team is, you know, Shevchenko's sister and Rafael Faziev, who, you know, for the most part have been having more wins than losses. So I think, you know, it might get her confidence up, but it's not the UFC. And they were decision. Whoa, she's got the last 7 fights are decision. You know, 2 decision losses, the 5 decision wins. So it's not like she's going out there and like just beating people down. It's they're close. It looks like, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna pick the underdog on here as well. I'm picking Wu.
Yeah, I'd pick Wu as well just because of her fight camp and her team. She's the underdog. That's weird.
Yeah, I'm picking her just because she's coming off some losses, but they're losses in the UFC. With Lucy, you know, technically her last UFC fights have been losses also, but they were a few years ago. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting how that plays out. But next up on the card, man, Jose Aldo, Merab Dvalishvili. You say his name. How awesome is it? Jose Aldo still just cracking at the you know, in the top of the division after I don't know how many, like a dozen title fights that he's had in his career. You know, lost the belt, ended up having that fight in 2020 against Peter Yuan where he ended up losing again. But since then, he's been on a 3-fight win streak, and he's looked, I thought, absolutely amazing in his last 3 fights. His last fight was against Rob Font, where I think he just executed an excellent strategy. You know, wasn't overly cautious, wasn't overly aggressive, just very technical. You know, did his thing and ground through that whole fight and coming out with a unanimous decision win. And with Merab, I'm going to say his first name. It's a lot easier to say. with Merab, of course, his record absolutely crazy. He comes in, loses his first 2 fights in the UFC, and has been on a winning streak ever since. He's coming off of a 7-fight win streak now at this point. His last win being over Marlon Moraes, where he ended up getting a KO in the second round, just at the end of last year. Obviously, tremendous wrestling. This is going to be classic. Well, I'm not sure it's the classic striker versus grappler matchup, because Jose Aldo he's a great all around MMA guy, but with Merab, his grappling is definitely way stronger than his striking. And with Jose Aldo, I think he's better known for being a striker, even though he's a all around mixed martial artist for sure. The odds on this one, again, another close matchup. Aldo coming in as a slight underdog at plus 115. Rob coming in as a negative 135 favorite. And I think I'd agree with those odds. I feel like you couldn't go wrong, picking either fighter, but I feel like Merab has that slight edge just because his grappling is so incredible. And up to this point, I feel like only one person has been able to deal with the grappling effectively. That was Cody Stamann. He still ended up winning over Cody, but Cody, excellent wrestler. If there was anyone who's going to be able to give him a run for his money in the grappling game, it was going to be Cody. And, Merab ended up getting the win in that one. So, my pick is Merab, but, it's going to be close. I'm not going to be surprised if Jose comes out on top either. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, from what I've read, Jose Aldo is the only person who was around in 2011, still actively fighting, still rated, ranked, and getting opportunities to, still get a chance to go fight towards the title eventually. Both of them have a common opponent in Marlon Moraes, who is a great fighter, great stand-up, but, Merab finished him. Jose took it to decision, and I think just based on the youth and Merab's recent wins and the way he's won, I could see him being a favorite that way. I will be picking Jose Aldo because I like seeing these older fighters still fighting and being able to compete. He's definitely well-rounded. I hope to see those traditional kicks where he just obliterates people's legs, but that might set him up for the takedown. We really haven't seen we know the Brazilians have great ground game, great jiu-jitsu. It's just we haven't seen them utilize it lately. Jose Aldo hasn't really used it to, put an offensive attack more than anything to defend against takedowns and stuff like that. With Merab, who we've seen on the ground be aggressive and offensive, I think that could definitely lead for some for him to be at a disadvantage. Jose, I hope does the kicks, can step back, keep in range. He still has that power, man. He still has the power. He still has a chin. He hasn't been stopped. He's been beat down pretty bad, but he hasn't been stopped. So I will be rooting for Jose. Merab is going to be a title contender. He's going to be a challenger. He's going to be fighting for a title one day. And I just want to see these fighters who, are Hall of Famers and legends just keep getting closer and closer to cementing their legacy. And I think, realistically, everyone's going to, at the end of the day, consider him one of the top featherweights of all time. His run of title defenses of being undefeated for a couple years is going to be hard to match. I am excited for this one. I think it's going to be probably a finish. And hopefully for Jose.
All right, picking from the heart, the slight underdog. All right, we'll see how this one turns out. I mean, another thing why I say it's going to be close is because even though Jose isn't known for the grappling, the wrestling, and things like that, you look at his takedown defense, 90%. To have over a dozen title fights, to be fighting in the top ranks for the past decade, and to have a 90% takedown defense, that's where, like I say, it's going to be close. I feel like Merab, his wrestling is I think he's going to be able to take Jose down, but even if you take Jose down, it's going to be hard to keep him down. So that's why I feel like it's going to be close. Yeah, that's why I'm picking Marab. But let's see, who do we got up next? Oh yeah, so oh my God, this is yeah, it's a crazy fight. Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold. Never thought we'd be looking at a fight like this. I mean, Luke Rockhold, his last fight was July 2019, so it's been a few years, and he's coming off that famous highlight reel loss against Blachowicz, where he ended up getting knocked out, got caught. Before that, had the fight against Romero, where he ended up losing by KO. Rockhold, his last 5 fights ended in KO. 2 of them he's come out on top. 3 of them he's lost. With Paulo Costa, he's the guy who, for I don't know how many fights, for multiple years, was the up and comer, was just steamrolling through people. Absolute warrior, looked incredible until he went up against Israel Adesanya and just absolutely crumpled. And I feel like when we saw him in his last fight, he was still not the same guy that we remember seeing, fight against Romero and Hall and Hendricks and things like that. So this one is interesting because it's like 2 guys who at one time were, seemingly unstoppable, amazing fighters, and they're both coming off of 2 losses. They've both got something to prove. I'm sure both of them want to prove that their career's not over, and it's going to be hard to turn things around if you got coming off of 3 losses for either of these guys at this point in their career. Paulo Costa is not as old as Luke Rockhold. Rockhold is 37 now. Costa's only 31, but at 185 pounds, it's a pretty competitive division. We don't see a lot of guys at that weight class, fighting into their 40s like we see, maybe with like the heavyweights or something. So this one's going to be interesting. The odds are heavily favoring Paulo Costa, probably just because he's been more active recently. In the very recent past fought for a title. But yeah, at the -380 favorite, Rockhold plus 300 underdog. As far as who am I picking, honestly, it's hard to say why, but I've just got to go off a feeling on this one because I don't have any logical thing to say that either guy has some kind of tactical advantage. But I'm going with Luke Rockhold on this one, picking the big underdog. I feel like he's had a few years, of his body being able to repair, being able to catch his breath, analyze, reassess his skills and rebuild himself. So I'm picking Luke Rockhold on this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this fight is actually trending higher than the title fight, than Edwards Usman. And a lot of people have likened this to, like, this is what it would be like if Paige Van Sant fought Rachel Ostovich. Like, this is supposed to be like the eye candy fight for women. So,
Yeah.
so like, because Luke Rockhold used to like model for Calvin Klein or something, and Paulo Costa definitely cares about his appearance, and Paulo Costa, like, I think he even delayed one of his last fights to get like hair plugs. Like, I don't know if you remember that whole fiasco.
Yeah.
Like, he pulled out of a
No.
fight, and then the next day he's on Instagram and he's like at a hair surgeon or whatever they do in Brazil, and like they're doing his hairline and he's getting hair plugs. And so, with that being said, Luke has definitely had some time to decompress, unwind, reset, rededicate himself, and I think he's just more focused than Paulo. I definitely, after the whole Adesanya fight, Paulo started acting weird, and just I feel like he's kind of continued that route. Blamed it on being drunk or having some drinks before the fight, and then gained a ton of weight, reached out to Patty Pimlet and was like, hey Patty, help me with my weight. And Patty's like 60 pounds more than his weight class and helping Paulo, who was a title, who fought for a title. Like, it was just weird. So I think Paulo definitely has some other priorities sometimes. Luke, I feel, is more dedicated, more focused. He trains with great camps. He's always like rotating and working out with different people. And I definitely think I agree with you with Luke Rockhold being my pick. I want to see him fight. He's been a champion, so I that's something that I think he hopes to attain again. And Paulo to me is just, he looks shredded. I don't know if you guys are, there's some drama behind this fight because prior to the weigh-in, Paulo was trying to cut weight and USADA showed up to take his blood, while he's in the midst of his weight cutting regimen. And so, during the weigh-in, Paulo was just like, F you, USADA, and whatever. So I think, that might be on his mind. He's a little distracted. He obviously was super focused on cutting that weight. So to me, that shows that maybe he was having a rough cut, or, had more to cut than he thought. Luke Rockhold, I just expect him to come out. I believe he, back in the day, wasn't he training with AKA, with Daniel Cormier and Khabib and them? So I just expect him to continue that kind of high intensity of training and focus. He's been a champ, he's been around champions, and I think that'll make the difference. So Rockhold for my pick.
Yeah, and Rockhold, if I do recall, did some grappling with Khabib. Daniel Cormier, I think, brought it up in a way that was not flattering for Luke Rockhold, because apparently Khabib was able to hold him down pretty good. But I mean, it's Khabib, so I guess there's no shame there. Only a few minutes left to get into the main fight: Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. Both of these guys have tremendous records. Usman's only lost one fight in his career back in 2013. Has racked up nothing but wins since then. Currently, I believe the ranked pound for pound best fighter in the UFC, and chasing that dragon of GSP's legacy of wanting to be considered the GOAT potentially. And with Leon Edwards, he did have a draw 2 fights ago against Belal Muhammad, but he was winning that fight up to that point. His last fight was against Nate Diaz, which was that crazy fight where you beat up Nate for like 5 rounds, and in the last minute, Nate just like
last 20 seconds
him for a loop and just knocked him around the ring, and everyone absolutely went crazy and went wild for that. He's just been on a streak since 2015, nothing but wins. Since then, the last fight he has fought, Usman before. These guys fought 7 years ago, where Edwards ended up losing by decision to Kamaru. Seemed like it was a pretty competitive fight, but Kamaru was able to eke out the win. As far as the odds go, -380 Usman, +300 Edwards. I'm not sure if those odds are correct, but I mean, I feel like the odds are in favor of Usman. It's going to be, how can you pick against Usman after beating Colby Covington, twice, Gilbert Burns, Tyrone Woodley, 2 wins over Masvidal. And Colby is, I feel like the almost right at that level with Usman. I'm not sure if Leon is at that level. It's not that Leon's done bad, or you can point to stuff and say like, oh, here's his weaknesses or anything. It's just Leon has not fought Kamaru or Colby at this point, and those 2 guys clearly are the best of the division. So he just hasn't fought that level of guy yet. I mean, Dos Anjos, he's got a win over Dos Anjos. He's got some fights over some good people, but if you look at the last few years, who's the best person that Leon has fought in the past like 4 years is probably Dos Anjos. Not counting the one against Belal because it didn't get finished. But I mean, he's got a win over Cerrone, but everybody beats Cerrone. He's got a win over Gunnar Nelson.
Oof.
I don't know how impressive that is. Brian Barberena, tough guy, but that was back in 2017. So, and same thing with Luque. So, I feel like it's going to be a good fight. I feel like the odds are in favor of Usman. And what are your thoughts?
I am picking Leon Edwards because I want to see something new happen.
Whoa!
Like I want to, like Usman has had some great finishes. The fights with Colby are always entertaining. I could see them fight all day long, like because yeah he beats Colby, but Colby lands and tags him and at times has put him in danger when I think a lot of people dismissed it. Um, I think it's like the Max Holloway Volkanovski, like Usman and Colby could fight forever, and until I see a dominant finish, or victory from one of them, I think they're just so evenly matched. And I want things to be shaken up, man. Like Edwards hasn't done too bad against other people. His striking is pretty good. His ground game, he's been able to use it to keep the fight standing up. I expect Kamaru to come out and try to do some takedowns probably within the first round or two. Just I think at this point we hopefully see the top level fighters going for a takedown the first round to try to get them to focus on the level change. Because that definitely plays a big role into a lot of the outcomes. If you have the takedown as one of your skills, use it right away, get them on their back foot, get them thinking about it, and then you can use your hands. And he did that really well against Jorge Masvidal, which he knocked him into oblivion. And I think he can definitely do that as long as he utilizes that. He's become very confident in his hands, and I don't want to say that he might be the kind of fighter to become too confident in those, because we've seen fighters who just become so in love with a knockout that then they forget their grappling and their takedown. But Usman is just such an amazing fighter that I think he will eventually reach that point where he's considered one of the greatest of the weight class. I think GSP to me just had the better quality of wins. Edwards, I want to see an upset, man. Like shake it up. Let's see something new. Let's see something happen. Like against Diaz, he definitely like the stand up fight definitely held his own and clearly won it. And then it was like the last second he kind of let his guard down for just a couple seconds. But I don't think Usman has that kind of striking or rhythm or pace to do that. I think if Usman wins, he'll probably do the takedowns mixed with power. But I want to see something new, man. That's just me though.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun one. Any parting words before we take off, Fern?
Follow us on Bam Fight Club. Be looking out for September 10th when we're going to be live in Vegas. We're going to be all over the place for the Diaz Khamzat fight. Ezekiel Flores having his fight coming up August 27th. Ray Bear Clothing did our shirt, so we're going to be rocking them. Probably going to do something custom for the Diaz Khamzat fight. As always, your support, love watching it. Sorry we've been gone for a while, but we're back nonstop from here on out. So thanks for having us.